going to do a baking recipe video about how to make a very easy and delicious apple cake. If you know me, in real life, I am not much of a baker. I love desserts. I eat a lot of sweets, but usually I buy them from the store. But you know, recently I have experimented on baking, and I don't have a lot of equipment at home, so a lot of the baking things that I do is something that's simple, that doesn't require me to have like mixer or like fancy equipments, because again, I'm a beginner. I don't like measuring things. If you look at my cooking videos, a lot of times, you know, I just pour all the ingredients and the spices, you know, from the jar, from the can, without like measuring it, like 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons here, there. So, and in this particular recipe, I did check out stuff online. There are several variations, like if you Google things, they might give you different directions, different ingredients, but I have personally tested this recipe myself and essentially changed up the recipes that I found online, just so that it's simpler and you know what works for me, and it tastes great, and it works. So if you're a beginner like me, don't own a lot of equipment, continue watching this video and learn how to make a really good and easy apple cake. So what I'm going to show you is, first we need to know what the ingredients that you need. So of course you will need, just like making cakes, you're going to need all-purpose flour. It's called apple cake, so you will need apples. The apples, basically I just like remove the core and I dice it. In this particular one, I'm using a mixture of Granny Smith apples and Gala apple. To tell you the truth, I don't have any preferences. Just keep in mind that if you're using Granny Smith, it's not as sweet as Gala, so probably you might want to kind of change up the sugar a little bit. But if you're using Gala, you might want to like reduce the sugar. The recipe, I'll put it below in the description box under this video. You also need a little bit of salt. This is one thing that if you're not a baker, you probably don't have at home. But it's not that expensive. It's easy to find baking powder. You also need ground nutmeg and cinnamon, ground cinnamon, brown sugar, eggs, and if you are a vegan, I do know that they do sell like egg substitute, so you could probably use that if you're vegan, okay? And butter. If you are vegan, you can substitute the butter with vegetable oil. I love butter in my like cakes and stuff. I like the flavor of butter, so I actually specifically choose and make sure that I found a recipe that can do butter. So and we actually will melt the butter, so you will need it melted, okay? All right, so because we do not own a mixer and we're not gonna use mixer, so one thing that I learned from baking is that it's always easier to mix the dry ingredients first, because you know so this is flour and I'm gonna mix it with sugar, the brown sugar. This recipe originally, if you look at online, a lot of times like they use like the ratio between the sugar and the flour is like 1 to 1. Or like even 1 to like 1.5, which in my opinion it's ridiculous. It's crazy, because keep in mind apples already has sugar, so I don't think that you need that much sugar anymore. So you know, the reason also I want to share this recipe with you is to show you that I did modify this recipe and it works fine, and it's okay, and I'm fine with the amount of sweetness. So yeah, so I'm mixing just like my flour and the brown sugar. Remember, brown sugar is a little bit moist at times, so make sure that like when you're mixing it, you know, you want to make sure that all the clumps and the lumps are like all gone, okay? Yeah, so in my opinion, like if let's say you use 1 cup of flour, half a cup of powdered sugar is half a cup of sugar is enough. I am using, when I first made this recipe, I was using all Gala apple, and Gala apples tend to be sweeter than Granny Smith. So I am going. So I think I'm going to add like a little bit extra sugar, but just like maybe like an extra spoonful or something. You know, not like a whole cup. So yeah. So make sure you mix all your dry ingredients. You also will need the baking powder, like I said. So I'm also going to mix it here. This is the baking powder is basically gonna make your cake rise. You also need a little bit of salt, not too much, just for taste. Ground cinnamon. You can, if you have like pumpkin spice, I think you can use that instead. Again, I don't have pumpkin spice. Cinnamon powder. I'm using nutmeg, but if you are not a nutmeg person, you don't need to use nutmeg. This is just like for like scent, right? For it's like just a little bit flavoring. So online, some people put cloves, so that's also an option. But you know, if you were to use nutmeg, I don't know yet. I think it's too much spices, but again, it's your liking. I'm more of a cinnamon and nutmeg person. Yeah, so you just mix all the ingredients together, meaning the dry ingredients, okay? Make sure there is no lumps, no clumps, especially the powder, the sugar, the brown sugar. Okay, so now after we mix the dry ingredients, I'm going to now mix all the wet ingredients, which is the eggs and the butter that I have microwaved. You don't want the butter to boil, okay? It just has to be liquefied. So I'll use the whisk to whisk your eggs. Sorry, it's like not focused, kind of hard. Okay, next you're gonna pour the butter. So this is a mixture of our eggs and our butter, and we're just going to whisk it until they're mixed together very well. Alright, so now we're going to combine our wet ingredients with the dry ingredients. So you just pour it carefully. And use a rubber spoon, or in this case I do, and just whisk it. Mix it together. Make sure it's mixed well. So again, I am not using mixer, and I'm just using my rubber spatula here to mix the ingredients, and your batter should be like perfectly wet and thick like this. It's like a peanut butter. So the next step is we are going to add the apples. So basically the apples, you just kind of like dump them into the mixing bowl. So now, and then after that, you just basically fold the apples and make sure all the batter and the apple kind of mix together. I'm greasing my pan here with a little bit of butter. Again, if you're vegan, you can replace it with vegetable oil. Okay, so this is our apple cake and it's ready to be baked. Look at this apple cake. So this is our apple cake. I did bake it a little bit longer after I flip it over outside, taking it outside the pan, so that the top is a little bit crispier. And I am also putting it in this pan because this particular pan has a cooling rack. See, like this. Because then that way my cake will kind of it will be cooling from the top and the bottom. Anyway, thank you for joining me in this video and in this baking adventure. Please don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you like it, and tell me, if you try this recipe, if you like it or not, what the result. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.